Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I am Gino Buccola alongside Ashley Mailloux with producer Bobby helping us out with the Friday Race of the Day preview. Remember, you can get free past performances for every race of the day on the Daily Racing Form website when you just click Race of the Day. It's all right there for you along with the preview. Now, let's take a look at the field for this Friday Race of the Day. It's over at Keeneland. We're going to go a mile and a half in the Grade 2 Sycamore, 3-year-olds and up. Ashley, when we go long like this, we don't have a whole lot of sample size because this division isn't one that runs all that often, these long distance mile and a half races on the turf. Some of the contenders in here, I think the middle of the field, you have Utah Beach, you have Grand Sonata. They're horses who are proven at these types of distances at this level. So I think they're super logical, but I don't really know if anyone's going to be an overwhelming favorite in here.
No, and I think we see that with the morning line. I agree with it come post time for the Sycamore, even 2, 3 minutes to post. I think the tote board will still be sorting itself out in terms of who should be favored. I do agree, though. I do think the edge goes to Utah Beach, just knowing that this is what he's bred to do. This is what he's really done in most of his races where he has won, right? It's been at these longer trips. He sort of excels at this distance, and maybe his last out effort's a little bit concerning, but we'll talk about it a little bit more later. It's at Kentucky Downs. I'm not going to hold it against him.
That's what's tricky as we move to the Timeform US Pace Projector. Especially this year, you're just getting more and more horses that have run at Kentucky that come out of those races, and you don't really know how to gauge them when they move to Keeneland because it's a completely different turf course, completely different style. I'm also curious, Ashley, if Mercante is even going to run in here because he ran just 6 days ago at Keeneland in the turf mile, but it was one of those races where it almost looks like he just sort of ran around in a circle and didn't do much. So kind of curious if they wheel him back quickly or if this was something that was, in the entries early on. So if he's not in this race, that will definitely take one of the horses that wants to be forward going a mile and a half out.
Yeah, and so in the event of scratches, this pace projector will be updated. That's available if you go to look at the Timeform USPPs or you look on, say, anywhere else that you might be able to find it. So I think the interesting thing is, in terms of a mile and a half, we talk about the pace. If Mercante scratches, I don't know who's going to be the pace setter in here. And I think that's where things get a little bit more, maybe I don't want to say dicey, but it becomes a little bit more interesting in the fact that I think you may see a couple of horses trying to go for it, whether they are the 78 and the 9 here, like the projector shows right now. I don't know, but I do think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Let's meet the field for the Grade 2 Sycamore, $400,000 up for grabs. This is going to go as race number 9 on Friday, October the 10th, over at Keeneland. The number 1, Il Siciliano, was last of 7 most early in his most recent race. Dropped back, then made this big, wide, grinding move up. And if you look at his last 2 races in a row, they're both pretty good. The problem is, Ashley, he's 0 for his last 8. And when you're looking at the body of work, he just doesn't feel like a win machine. But then the counter is he's actually been facing some pretty sharp horses as of late and has been pretty competitive. I feel like as an Italian named Gino Buccola, I have to pick this horse, but I'm not going to be doing so. Do you have an endorsement for this guy?
I don't. Not that his form isn't good this year, but again, he's not a win machine. He's technically eligible for non-winners of 2 life when you're just being very blunt with him. But I will say his efforts have been good. I can understand why they're going to take a shot. You mentioned the horses that he faced recently. Let's go back to his 4th, his only graded stakes try. Farbridge was the winner. We know what he's gone on to do. So, they're going to take a shot here. It's just for me, I would like to see more against stakes competition. This is not an easy spot.
Agree. It's a competitive spot as we move to Safe Home Trip. He got the better of Desvio last time out, and now that's back-to-back victories for Safe Trip Home. I think I said Safe Home Trip. Scores is looking for the 3rd consecutive victory, Ashley. So sharp, second start off the short break. And in that most recent race, he was last early. He was 7 lengths off. He moved up kind of gradually to the outside of Desvio, made a 4-wide bid, and then just continues to sustain that bid. It was visually pretty impressive. I think both of them will probably need to move up a little bit on the buyer speed figure scale, but I don't think either of them would be crazy in this spot.
No, I'm more intrigued by Safe Trip Home. I think looking at the progression, this is a horse that had a really long layoff. And we're talking, what was it, 13 months, just over that, came back. And to me, it's just gotten better. And I think a lot has to do with the turf, obviously, has run well at Keeneland in the turf tries. Most recently, I thought it was a good effort. Kind of a tough group that one faced. And then you mentioned it, 2 wins back to back now with a freshman in between. I think second start off the layoff, he's a real danger in here. And in terms of trip, that would be my one thing. Last time out in the Colonial Cup, it wasn't a big field. He was towards the back, and go back 2 and 3 back. He's been pretty far. So I wonder if he is going to need some pace help.
Move to Mercante. We'll talk about him like he's going to run in here, Ashley. He's a multiple graded stakes winner. He's grade one placed. My concern is that I think he's best at about a mile and an eighth, and his race is going a mile and a half. It's been a little bit farther than it seems like he wants to go, and a mile is kind of short for him. It's a little sharp. So I think when you look through his form, you can see he's kind of a mile and an eighth horse. From a class standpoint, if he's in this race, he certainly fits with this group. He can be forward. I will upgrade him, and he's the type of horse I use in pick fours or pick fives if he's in here, just because I think he has class, and I think he could get a really nice trip sitting close or being right in the mix early.
Right. And especially if he makes the lead easy in here and he is just kind of galloping and chugging along leisurely, I think he can at least stick around for a share. I don't think he
Absolutely.
wins this race personally, just because I agree with you. I do think there are some distance limitations. But even with that said, if he runs here, I do think we know he's going. I don't know who else is really going. So a horse that I certainly consider in the bottom of my exotics.
Utah Beach, major player in here. Multiple graded stakes winner at a mile and a half on the turf. He's a grade two winner over this course back in April. And when you dive into his last two races, Ashley,
Mhm.
he's faced pretty tough company. They've been in pretty tough groups. I mean, that sword dancer behind El Cordobes, Rebel Red, and Nation's Pride, the first and third place finishers both came back in their next start and finished third in a grade one,
Mhm.
just to show you that they've kept their form. Runner up that day, Rebel Red, is solid. He's like a solid horse at the grade two, even like a low level grade one type. And Utah Beach is a horse who likes this turf course, who can run all day long. I really do think this is kind of a softer spot than what he's been dealing with in his last few. Just feels like a really solid horse who you think is going to come running late if he gets the right trip. I think he's at least in the mix, like top three, top four kind of horse in here.
And you mentioned in terms of the morning line, he's favored at 7-2. It's interesting to see that. I think he is the horse to beat, even kind of looking at this field, which I think is wide open just because of the things that you mentioned. The distance, the record at Keeneland. He's run very well. To me, it also is some class relief. And I remember talking to Ignacio Correas down at Turfway Park and asking him about that spot going a mile and an eighth. And he said, he literally said, it's just a prep to go a mile and a half. And look what he's done since then. He's had 2 wins. I liked the fourth in the Sword Dancer. Obviously, there are 2 other performances where one of them I certainly scratched my head a little bit, the race at Churchill. He just, got bounced around a little bit, but he never had anything to offer in the final stages. So willing to forgive his last out effort. And I just think getting back to Keeneland is going to make all the difference.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he got caught in between horses. He got shuffled back last time. He did make this move out wide, but the race didn't really shape up all that much. There just wasn't a whole lot of passing. Corruption set the pace. He faded to third. Old Crazy Bone was sitting second. And then the only horse that even passed a little bit in there was Tawny Port, who's actually been in pretty good form. He just ran another good race up at Woodbine last weekend. So we moved to Grand Sonata. Another one who, when you just look at his resume, it's probably one of the better in the field, Ashley. He's earned over, $2.5 million. This is the horse who's won some big races. He's a multiple graded stakes winner, but he's just won for his last 17 overall. So we're just not talking about a horse who's in that best win form. He shows up, and if you're just going off of his buyer speed figures, he's remarkably consistent. But I don't like playing horses like this at shorter prices. He's a horse who I kind of like punching up with because he can compete at the top levels, but I don't know like him when you're going to play him at a shorter price and you really, you need him at a short price to get the job done.
Yeah, I think the only time I cashed on him was 3.5 years ago when I loved him in the Clinton Floyd. I'm not joking. I was down at Gulfstream Park at the time and loved him in that spot. And you now look at since then, I have backed him and I've gotten burned a lot. I still think he's a talented horse. Obviously, they think a lot, of him keeping him in these really tough graded stakes races. And I thought his Arlington Million performance was extremely good behind
Yeah.
Fort Washington. I thought prior to that, a good second behind redistricting out at Monmouth Park, going a mile and 3/8. So we'll see. I think my intrigue with him is more in races that are a mile and a quarter, a mile and 3/8, maybe going a little bit shorter, a mile and a half. I still haven't seen what I wanted to see from him. I want to see more of a late turn of foot, and he hasn't had that. So Tyler knows him very well, has piloted him actually to his last win. So like that he stays aboard. But for me, it's just I've been burned.
Yeah. Yeah. Desvio is the next one. He's a stakes winner. He's grade 3 place. He's 0 for his last 8, though. What hurts him, Ashley, is his lack of early speed. He just has to come from so far out of it. He came launching for a pretty nice second last time out. He will need to turn the tables on Safe Trip Home and Goldeneye, who have been in front of him in his last 2 starts. What do you think about Desvio in here?
I'm really intrigued. He's a huge price on the morning line. He should be, but he was rolling late last time out in the Colonial Cup. We talked about kind of the trips that the top two got in there. They both came from the back of the pack to rally in that short field. But I think when you look at his body of work, there's one thing that I think is certain. He is bred to go long. He
Oh, yeah.
wants to go long. And I think the mile and 3/8, the mile and a half is where we've seen him kind of shine. And even in the Virginia Derby, when it was, on the turf, and not on the dirt for a Kentucky Derby points race, he ran really well behind Deterministic. So I'm intrigued. I think the rider change is also a little intriguing. John Velasquez has been aboard before in New York, but climbs back aboard. That caught my eye. I've certainly seen 20-1 shots that I don't like as much, and I'm going to use this horse somewhere.
What a opening week at Keeneland for Johnny V. Just incredible. The ageless wonder. I think Marcus Hirsch, our colleague, had an article about his success. We move to Reichquist. My concern with him, Ashley, I know him from out in Southern California. He's not been in great win form either. He's just won for his last 14. And the horse that he just lost to, Rostaman Vibe, that was in a first level allowance race. When Rostaman Vibe stepped up in the John Henry, he was last in a field of 7. So I'm just wondering how good the company he's been facing is. And this is going to be probably tougher than what he's been facing.
It will be. I do like, though, that at least in terms of his 3 races this year, he's taken a step forward with each of them. You wonder if he can do that again. He's been lightly raced. Last year, we saw him 8 times. We haven't even seen him half the number of starts, right, which is those 3 races. James Graham climbing aboard, I think that's intriguing. But like you said, another one that when you start to look at the other big prices, at least I've seen some competitiveness in the last, let's say, year in graded stakes. We haven't seen that from him. He's never been in a stakes race in the last year.
This is a horse who I wouldn't be shocked if they wanted to get a little aggressive with and put towards the front end in here, because he kind of has some of the natural early speed. Maybe get him out front early and see if that can help him and his chances. San Siro was a horse who, going into the New Orleans Classic this year, I thought was like getting ready to take a nice step forward. And then he faced some pretty tough company. He was in against Hall of Fame in Sierra Leone. Touch Upon a Star ended up wiring that field. Then after that, he just doesn't really seem like he kind of progresses all that much. The Ben Ali and the Pimlico Special, they're fine. They're not horrible efforts or anything. He's second and he's fourth in there, but not really stepping forward all that much. I'm curious on the grass with him. They're going to take another shot in here. He's only raced on the grass twice, and one of them was going 2 miles at Kentucky, so it's really tough to get a feel for that. But we do have to mention that trainer Brendan Walsh had an incredible start to the meet, 5 for 11 with a couple seconds and a couple thirds. Like everything he was sending out was firing last week.
Yeah, and Frankie Dettori's climbing aboard had success with Brendan recently as well. So there was a couple of things that I kept on going back to this horse just because he throws a sneaky good race here and there and there. We saw that in the Ben Ali. We saw that, as you mentioned, going into the New Orleans Classic, the race that he had won dominantly prior to that. And, the horses that he faced, they became next out winners. So I don't know. I kept on toying with him. And I think ultimately we talked about the 6 in here. The 6 is sort of who replaces the 8 for me in, the big prices in here. They'll try the turf again. His 2 turf races, they're, out of the money, but obviously one was a return to the races. So how do you assess that? You mentioned 2 miles and a 16th last time out. It's tough. It's really tough to know what he's actually going to do on grass in Classic Empire in terms of numbers. He's about average. He's a touch below with the turf routers.
Ashley, next up is the number 9, Golden Eye, who I think is a little bit interesting, especially when you look at the last 4 races or so for McPeak. I think they all make sense. Ran in June like he needed the race, comes back in July, and then in August wins at Colonial and Saratoga, so they step him up, but they go a little too far, trying up 2 miles in the 16th at Kentucky. I think that's an easy race to put a line right through, and then go back to last year in September and October of 2024. He's winning going a mile and a half at Kentucky. He's winning going a mile and a half over this turf course, and he can sit pretty close. And I think we have a replay, Ashley, of him beating a pretty nice horse that you and I have seen a lot on synthetic surfaces win a bunch of races. That's Wolfie's Dynaghost.
Yeah, always been a big fan of him. And obviously Goldeneye gets the better of him, but does it pretty easy. Very different trips. Wolfie's Dynagos is close to it, but kind of looking at Goldeneye, he's last turning for home in this compact field. Jose Ortiz just kind of goes to some just encouragement with his hands, urging him to go forward. Really isn't showing him the whip ball that much, and draws clear by 2 lengths. So kind of looking at that, I think it's a very good performance from Goldeneye. It was only going a mile and 3/16, though. I think looking at his other races, I'm not worried about the distance. He has won at the distance. It's worth noting he's done it at Keeneland. And I just wonder kind of, if you draw a line through his last out, which we talked about, exits that same race as San Siro, are there things to like? I think so. I'm curious to see about his trip. I know he was dead last in that compact field. He could be mid-pack here.
Actually, I know from my son watching some of those movies that Ohana means family. Ohana Honor is the next one up, and this one is going to go second start off of a long layoff. He's interesting too because he had a big break between his races. He did not fire in the Sycamore last year. I think we can probably make an excuse for that though, because after the Sycamore, he was off for so long, and his form before the Sycamore was actually pretty solid. He ran into Langnos last time out at Kentucky Downs. Langnos got really good over that Kentucky turf course. He came back and ran second in the mid millions next time out. Yeah, I think he's an interesting horse because that mile and 70 race might have just been a prep for him coming off the bench just to shake off a little bit of the rust and to get him ready to stretch back out. Flavian Pratt jumps aboard, and he's another horse who has shown the ability to go forward, but can also come from off the pace. So Flavian is very good at reading the room, kind of looking around and seeing if there's not speed and going. Another horse who wouldn't shock me if they were just a little bit closer than they've been in some of their recent races.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that most recent effort. You mentioned it's a mile and 70. I don't think this is really what he wants to do at this point in his career,
No.
but he did get the pace setup that he needed at Kentucky Downs. It's just that no one was going to catch the winner in here. I mean, look how effortless it was for the winner. But Ohana Honor, I thought, ran well, especially as you mentioned. Long layoff. Hadn't seen this one since this race at Keeneland. So that sort of tells you the timing of it all. I think to me, he's been an interesting horse to watch because we saw him, say, March of 2024 in an overnight handicap at Gulfstream, and then he gets a win, does that at Keeneland at a mile and a half, and then they just got really aggressive with the spots. That tells me that Shug had a lot of confidence in him. He did not embarrass himself. Second to Silver Knot. You see him, third, dead heating with Farbridge. Nation's Pride was second. Horses that we've already mentioned their names. So I think he's very, very live in here, and I'm curious to see if he's going to take action. I would have to think that he's going to come down from the 6-1.
I think so too. I wouldn't be shocked if he's in especially if a horse like Mercante scratches too. If he's in the 7-2-ish range, it really wouldn't shock me, but I don't want to take much less than that on a horse like him. Anglophile rounds out the field. He's really capable of some big efforts. I know our buddy, colleague David Aragona likes this horse because he's a trip horse. If you watch his replays, you want to make cases for him over and over because he's had some bad rides. He's gotten stuck in some bad spots, but now it's for the last 15. I think you can toss his Kentucky Downs race, but you're starting to get to so long between victories for this horse.
Right. And you look at his 3, 2 of them were Ellis early in his career, and the other one was actually at Kentucky Downs. He hasn't found the winner's circle in over 2 years. And obviously he has performed well, second in the Man of War, even in the preview race at Ellis, which I do think he likes Ellis Park, the turf course, quite a bit. We've seen some of his better efforts. I don't mind the effort 2 back where he kind of made the lead late and just surrendered. So I don't know. To me, he's a tough horse to endorse on top. But if you're going to use him in the exotics, I wouldn't call you crazy based on the fact that it seems like every other race or so, we're seeing a big effort.
Yeah, what's tough about this race, Ashley, as you go through the field, there just aren't that many horses that you can immediately dismiss. There's not very many that you look at and go, wow, they would be insane if they were to win this race or to run well in here. And that's what makes it a bit tricky. As we move to selections, how are you going to stack them up in this one?
I'm going to chalk out, not that much of a chalk here, 7-2 on Utah Beach. I think this is the horse to beat based on resume, performances at Keeneland, the distance, you name it. But I told you my crazy horse in here is the 6, Desvio. He's 20-1 on the morning line. If there's any bit of pace here, this horse will be rolling late. I think is not going to be played just because it's a big step up, but have some confidence in this one to get a piece.
4, 6, 2, 3 for Ashley. I'll put the 10 Ohana Honor on top. 10, 9, 4, 5 for me. Looking for the 9 and 10 to maybe sit good trips, not have to come from too far out of it. Respect both what the 4 Utah Beach and the 5 Grand Sonata have done in their overall body of work. So whoever you play, however you play them, wish you the best of luck on Friday.